الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلوات الله والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Okay, this is thank you very much. That's the Moroccan imama. It's similar to the Indian imama, right? Okay, so Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. This is a new lecture, inshallah, of Nuzhat Al-Nadhar. Sharh Nuzhat Al-Nadhar. And today, inshallah, we're going to take the last chapters that have to do with the... Yeah. If we don't finish today, inshallah, anyway, we'll add a new lecture, inshallah, no problem. We'll add a new lesson, inshallah. So here... قال رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى الإسناد العالي فإن قل عدده أي عدد رجال السند فإما أن ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذلك العدد القليل بالنسبة إلى سند آخر يرد به ذلك الحديث بعينه بعدد كثير، أو ينتهي إلى إمام من أئمة الحديث ذي صفة عالية كالحفظ والفقه والضبط والتصنيف وغير ذلك من الصفات المقتضية للترجيح كشعبة ومالك والثوري والشافعي والبخاري ومسلم ونحوهم. So it says if the number of the narrators are a small number, and so it either reaches to the Prophet ﷺ or it reaches to one of the great imams that have a high attitude or high attributes of memorizing and great scholars and stuff like that, like memorizing, like great fuqaha, like neat in their memory, or like great scholars that wrote great books, or other qualities that make them better than others, like Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti rahimahullah, like Imam Malik rahimahullah, like Imam Thawri, Sufyan Thawri, or Imam Shafi'i or Bukhari or Muslim or others. So he says فالأول وهو ما ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, I said I'm not going to translate, so I'll just go quickly so that we won't lose time. So the first type is called Al-Ulu Al-Mutlaq. That means it's high. Why do they say high? Because you're so close to the Prophet ﷺ, so the chain is high. If the chain that reaches to the Prophet ﷺ is short, that means you're high to the Prophet ﷺ. So if you say to the Prophet ﷺ, it's called Ulu Mutlaq, it's totally high. But if it reaches to an imam or a book of one of the imams that are known, it's called Al-Ulu Al-Nisbi. That means it is high, but high due to something else. So it's high due to something else, not totally high. You see? So if the chain is authentic, and it reaches to the Prophet ﷺ. So this is the best chain that you can have. Or else, it's a high chain, even if the hadith is not authentic, but at least it's not fabricated. So if it's fabricated, it's like nothing. So you have if you have a chain that reaches to the Prophet ﷺ or reaches to anybody else, but it's fabricated, it's not authentic, well, it's like nothing. It's like if you have a broken ladder, you say? If you want to go up with something, you have a ladder. And it's broken. So you have a ladder, and it seems like it's short, that you can reach quickly to the roof, or to the place that you want to reach to, but it's broken, so it's nothing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, ladder. Yeah. So here it's called the second one. If it reaches to an imam, not to the Prophet ﷺ, it's called al-ulu nisbi. That means it's high due to that imam. And the latest scholars used to take care a lot and be concerned a lot about the isnad al-ali, the high isnad. Until that, many of them forgot even about all kinds of important things in the sanad, and they focused on it being high. But the previous scholars used to be concerned about that isnad because it's closer to the Prophet ﷺ, and the narrators are less, so the mistakes have to be less. You see? If the mistakes are less, that means if the men are less, so the effort that you're going to do searching for the narrators is going to be less. So you're not going to fall into lots of mistakes. The mistakes are going to be few. So in that case, that's going to be the best chain. Because every narrator of those narrators can make a mistake. So if you have lots of narrators, so the mistakes are going to be a lot. And if you have few narrators, the mistakes are going to be less. But if the chain that is long, more authentic and better, and the chain that is high is weak, and it contains lots of narrators that aren't you can't depend on them, so of course the long chain is going to be better. The long chain is going to be better without any hesitate, according to how Hajar is saying. Now, for the ones that say that the low isnad, what do you understand from saying low isnad? Isnadun nazil. That means it's not short. It's long. It's long. So the long isnad, which is called isnadun nazil, the ones that say it's better than the others totally, they say because you have to do a lot of efforts, and making a lots of efforts gives you a high reward, so that's going to be better. That's not true, actually. That you're now that means, according to how Hajar what he's saying now you're preferring that by something out of the out of what we're discussing about, out of the discussion that we're talking about. And there's something called here. Okay, now these are things that aren't important about Mustalah Hadith, but they just mention it. We have something here called الموافقة. الموافقة. Now العلو النسبي. العلو النسبي has in it what is called الموافقة. What is الموافقة? It is reaching to the Shaykh of one of the scholars that wrote some books, the authors, like Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, and others. But you reach to the Shaykh of the Bukhari, for example, without his chain, without passing on him. So muwafaqa means that you are equal with them. So you reach to the Shaykh of the author that you want, but from another chain, An example of that is Al-Bukhari narrates by Qutaybah ibn Sa'id, by Malik. You know Qutaybah ibn Sa'id, where does he come from? Qutaybah ibn Sa'id is originally from Baghlan, which is in Afghanistan nowadays. He was a great Imam. Qutaybah ibn Sa'id narrates from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So if we narrate it from his roots, that means that he's talking about him. Hajj is talking about himself. He says that means it's going to be between me and Qutaybah. 8 persons. 8 persons are between us. But if the same hadith is narrated from the roots that passes on Abu al-Abbas al-Sarraj, and he was a great Imam that was in Nishapur. Nishapur now is northern Iran, and it was a great city that bore thousands of great Imams. Nishapur, and from Nishapur, they call it in Arabic Nisabur. We have from it Imam Muslim, and we have from it Imam Hakim, and we have from it lots of great Imams. So this Abu Abbas al-Sarraj that passed in the year 313, it's good to know the dates of the scholars and when did they pass, when at least their era that they were in. It's good, very good to know, especially the brothers that are concerned on about hadith. The brothers that are concerned in hadith, they have to know the stages and the eras of the scholars. They call it tabaqat al-huffaz, tabaqat al-ruwah. And to know these scholars, I advise you to read تذكرة الحفاظ of Al-Hafiz Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah. It's a very interesting book. And I advise you to read طبقات الحفاظ I wrote it, I mistaken. طبقات الحفاظ of Al-Imam Ibn Libni اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد Ibn Abdul Hadi. He was one of the great Huffaz too. So these books, I advise you to read them because they contain in them names of great Imams, and it's classified. And Tabaqat and Tadhkirat al-Huffaz, Imam Dhahabi has additions to it. They call it Dhuyul Tadhkirat al-Huffaz. You have Dhayl Awwal for Imam al-Husayni, Al-Hafiz al-Husayni, And then you have Dhayl on it, Al-Hafiz Al-Suyuti. Al-Suyuti. And Shaykh Abdul Hayy Al-Kettani rahimahullah wrote his Fihris Al-Faharis, and he said that I did it as an addition to these books. As an addition to these books. Okay, is that clear? So, so he says if we pass on Abu Abbas Sarraj to Qutayba, for example, it'll be between us and Qutayba about 7 narrators. So that means we reached to Bukhari's Shaykh, but with a high isnad. With a high isnad. So this is called al-muwafaqa. That means you reach to a shaykh of a great imam. You say, وافقنا البخاري في شيخه قتيبة بن سعيد إلى الإمام مالك فهذه موافقة. The first one is موافقة تامة. The second one is called موافقة بعلو, because you have less narrators. And in al-ulu al-nisbi that we're talking about, do you understand what I'm talking about? Did you get the ideas that I'm talking about? Brothers, there is okay. Okay. The second thing is called al-badal. Al-badal. What is badal? Badal is substituting, when you change something with another. Here it's reaching to shaykh of a shaykh. Like in this example, you reach to Imam Malik, not to Qutayba, by another chain. For example, by passing on Al-Qanabi to Imam Malik, because Al-Bukhari narrates from Al-Qanabi, narrates from Qutayba, narrates from to reach to the Imam Malik, narrates to Ismail ibn Abi Uwais and others. Okay, he says that mostly they talk about al-muwafaqa and al-badal if we're talking about high isnad, or else we can have muwafaqa and badal without high isnad. And we have in the ulu al-nisbi, what is called al-musawa. So that means equal. Musawa is equal. And it's having the same narrators in the chain. وهي استواء عدد الإسناد من الراوي إلى آخره أي إلى إسناد العلو النسبي مع إسناد أحد المصنفين. That means you have the same narrators with a well-known scholar like Bukhari or Muslim or Tirmidhi or others. Like he says, like An-Nasa'i, for example, narrates a hadith that between him and the Prophet ﷺ, he has 11 narrators. And that we narrate the same hadith with another chain by 11 narrators too. So we reach to Nasa'i, with Nasa'i to the Prophet ﷺ, to the same hadith with the same narrators. Okay, I think this kind of isnad nowadays is impossible. You can't have the same, because now we are so far from the Prophet ﷺ. So nowadays it's possible, but it was in the days of Imam Al-Hafidh Muhajjar rahimahullah, it was possible, but nowadays it's impossible. And we have in Ulu Nisbi what is called Al-Musafaha. That means shaking hands. Shaking hands, how come? It's reaching to the student of that Imam. Like, for example, we reach to Al-Firabri, which is a student of Imam Al-Bukhari, for example, and it is called Al-Musafaha because both of us reach with each other and we shake hands with our Shaykh, which is Imam Al-Nasa'i, for example, or in the example of Imam Al-Bukhari, we both reach with Al-Firabri and we shake hands with Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. So that's what they call Al-Musafaha. What is the other side, vice versa, of Al-Isnad Al-Ali? It's Al-Isnad Al-Nazil, low Isnad. Okay? So every example we gave, you can have it by Isnadun Ali or Isnadun Nazil, low or high. Okay. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. This is the last chapter in this book. Chapter 4. It's called, no, we still have other chapters. 4. Still have 4 and 5 and 6 in the end. Okay, it has 6 chapters. So this chapter deals with أقسام الحديث باعتبار تحمله وأدائه. Classifies of hadith due to how to give it, how to listen to it, and how to narrate it. So if you and another guy have the same, you are his sheikh and he is your sheikh. You are my sheikh and I am your sheikh. And we have the same professors. And we are in the same age. This is called, okay, no. Now, if you are my sheikh and I'm your sheikh, this is called al-mudabbaj. Mudabbaj. It's called mudabbaj from dibajatul wajh. Dibaja, that means the image of the face. And if we are the same age and we have the same shuyukh, this is called riwayatul aqran. Riwayatul aqran. That means mates. And equal, people are equal to each other and they narrate from each other. So if they narrate from each other, it's mudabbaj. And this is called mudabbaj al-aqran. That means they are in the same stage and then they took from each other, because you can have mudabbaj with somebody who is older than you. And this is called, so now not all mudabbaj, not every mudabbaj is called riwayatul aqran. Aqran if they were equal to each other. We're going to have other examples of something else. So if every qareen narrates from his qareen, that is called al-mudabbaj. And it's more specific than the other one. So every mudabbaj is riwayat aqran. And not every aqran are mudabbaj. Not every people who are in the same age narrate from each other. They might have the same scholars, the same professors, the same age with each other, but they didn't narrate from each other. And there's a book written by Imam Ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah. It's called Al-Mudabbaj. Al-Mudabbaj. And another one written by Shaykh Abu Shaykh Al-Asbahani. It's called Riwayatul Aqran. رواية الأقران. Now, if a professor narrates from his student, it isn't mudabbaj too, it's mudabbaj too, but they have another name. They have another name that is, we're going to mention it later, inshallah. They call it رواية الأكابر عن الأصاغر, the narrations of the elders from the youngers. Okay? So if you narrate from somebody who is younger than you, or in another age than you, or lower than you in his stage, in his post, that is called رواية الأكابر عن الأصاغر. Okay? And we have from these kinds too رواية الآباء عن الأبناء, fathers narrating from their children, from their sons, and Sahaba narrating from tabi'een, and any Shaykh narrating from his student, and others. So all these are called رواية الأكابر عن الأصاغر. And on the other, and vice versa, and that's the normal case, it's رواية الأصاغر عن الأكابر. That's the normal case, that people who are low narrate from people who are high. Tabi'un narrate from Sahaba. Children narrate from their fathers. Student narrates from his Shaykh. That's normal. And we have a well-known chain that is called من روى عن أبيه عن جده, who narrated from his father to his grandfather. And the Hafiz Salah ad-Din al-Ala'i, you know Salah ad-Din al-Ala'i? Salah ad-Din al-Ala'i is a great scholar. He's called Abu Sa'id Khalil ibn Kaldi ibn Abdullah al-Ala'i al-Dimashqi al-Shafi'i, and he passed in the year 761. He wrote a book called, he has great books, he's a great Hafiz. He has a book called الوشي المعلم في من روى عن أبيه عن جده عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And he says that he wrote a huge volume mentioning the ones that narrated from their father to the grandfather to the Prophet ﷺ, and he divided to several divisions. So one of them, the noun that says narrate from his father, from his grandfather, the noun his father, whom, who does he mean? And when he says, now sometimes the noun goes to his father, that means the father narrates from his father. And sometimes it means something else, like Amr ibn Shu'ayb an abihi an jaddihi. Do they mean grandfather of the first narrator or the second narrator? You see, so the word his father, is it the grandfather of the narrator, or the grandfather of his father? So he mentions that in his book. Hafiz ibn Hajar says that I summarize his book and I added lots of things that he didn't have it there, and I added lots of narrations and additions. And he says that the greatest number of father narrating from his father, it's 14. Imagine 14. Everybody narrates from his father. Are you with me, guys? Are you getting what I'm talking about? Okay, that's good. Fantastic. I just want to know so that you won't go away from me, and I would like to know that you are still getting the idea that I'm talking about. Now, if two narrate from their sheikh, and one dies and the other remains a long time, or anyway remains after the first narrator, so this is called as-sabiq wal-lahiq. As-sabiq, the previous one, al-lahiq, the latest, that reaches late. And he says the greatest, or the biggest years that we discovered between two narrators that have one shaykh. Imagine 150 years between the death of the first one, and they narrate from one shaykh. And that is, 150 years. That's a lot, subhanAllah. 150 years. And that's the Hafiz al-Silafi heard from Abu Ali al-Baradani, one of his shuyukh, and he narrated from him, and he passed in the year 500. Okay? Then the last student of Al-Hafiz al-Silafi that heard from him is his grandson Abu al-Qasim Abdul Rahman ibn Makki. He's the son of his daughter. And he passed in the year 650. Subhanallah al-Azim. 650. You see? Al-Hafiz al-Silafi, not Salafi, as-Silafi. It's a Persian word that means three lips. They say because his grandfather had a cut in his lip, so it seemed like three lips. Silapi in Persian. I don't know if any one of you has any understands a bit Persian, or it's similar to one of your languages. So does it mean anything to you, Silapi? Does it sound something like oh yeah. Because anyway, so that's what they say, because some people can understand it Salafi. I have a weak understanding of the language. Okay, anyway, Al-Hafiz al-Silafi rahimahullah is originally from Aspahan, and Aspahan, which is nowadays in Iran, was a great Sunni city, and it bore great Sunni imams. Abu Tahir al-Silafi was a Shafi'i imam, and he was one of the great muhaddithin, and he traveled and he immigrated to Alexandria, and he lived in Alexandria. He had a huge library, and he lived a lot. I mean, he reached about 98 years or something like that. So lots of scholars took from him and narrated from him. You see? Then he said, and from an old example of that Imam Bukhari narrated from his students, Abu al-Abbas al-Sarraj, some few things in his book At-Tarikh, the history. He took from his student Abu al-Abbas al-Sarraj. Okay? And Abu al-Abbas al-Sarraj in his history and other books. And he passed in the year, Bukhari passed in the year 256. 256. Okay? That's the year where Al-Hafiz ibn Imam Bukhari passed. And the last one narrated from Sarraj by listening, not by ijazah, by hearing, is Abu Hussein Al-Khaffaf. Abu Hussein Al-Khaffaf, which was originally from Nishapur, and he passed in the year 393. 393. Okay? You see how there's a huge... so imagine that Al-Bukhari 256 and Abu Hussein Al-Khaffaf 393. ما قدرش ناكل ان شاء الله. ما قدرش ناكل. He says most of these kinds of narrations are from the narrations by listening. Because the one that you heard from the hadith can die after the one the death of one of the narrators a long time that وذلك أن المسموع منه قد يتأخر بعد موت أحد الراويين عنه زمانا حتى يسمع منه بعض الأحداث ويعيش بعد السماع منه دهرا طويلا فيحصل من مجموع ذلك نحو هذه المدة والله الموفق. Because now if you hear from an imam in the last days of him. Now let me give you an example. Now the Shaykh can give a lecture in the beginning of his life. For example, he was about 18 years old. And someone heard from him in that age. Then he lived until he reached about 80 years old. And then a young man comes and listens to him, and then he dies. So that, let me say that the one who heard from him in the last age was about 18. So imagine the huge distance between him and the first one who heard. The first one who heard, he might be an old man and he died quickly. So the last one lived a long time again after the first one who heard. So the Shaykh between them lived until he let two people hear from him, but in a long distance between both of them. Okay, now if you narrate from two persons who have the same name and the same name of the father, or even the same name of the grandfather, or the same name and the same nickname, and you can't differentiate between them, and both of them are trustworthy. So and that happened with Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah when he says حدثنا Ahmad. Who's Ahmad? Ahmad عن ابن وهب. Ahmad عن ابن وهب. Who's Ahmad عن ابن وهب? So it can be either Ahmad ibn Salih al-Misri or Ahmad ibn Isa, or sometimes he says in Iraq عن Muhammad. Who's Muhammad? Muhammads are a lot. So it can be Muhammad ibn Salam or Muhammad ibn Salam or Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhri. And he says that I mentioned all that in my commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari. That means Fath al-Bari. And actually, Fath al-Bari, and especially in his introduction that is called Hadi al-Sari. Hadi al-Sari. You see? Now, how do you differentiate between that? Well, you know, there are some students, there are some scholars, and they have their students, so you know that. And there are some names now. For example, if say Qala Abdullah in Iraq, in Kufa, that means Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And if you say it in Medina, that means Abdullah ibn Umar. And if you say it in Mecca, that means it's Abdullah ibn Abbas. And that's it. So, yani you can differentiate between that by knowing who are the shuyukh. And you look, you can, it's easy when you go back to تهذيب الكمال. تهذيب الكمال of Hafiz al-Mizzi. He gives every sheikh and all the ones who narrate it from him. So that makes things easy. In that case, you can reach to the name of the sheikh that you want in an easy way. Now, if somebody narrates from a sheikh, and then he says to the sheikh, you narrated to me so and so, and the sheikh says, oh no, I never narrated that to you. So what are we going to do? Do we reject this narration, or we accept it, or what? If he says that you lied on me and I never narrated that from you, or I never narrated that, if he is sure and he's saying that surely, that means one of them is lying. And because we don't know exactly who is the one who is lying, so no one of them is not trustworthy anymore. But if he says, well, I can't remember, I don't know. I don't remember, I don't know that. We accept that hadith from the sheikh that narrated. And there is something that scholars say, Man hafidha hujjatun ala man lam yahfadh. The one who memorizes is more expected to, especially if he's not a liar and he has a good memory. So we can't reject what he narrates because the other one didn't remember. And this happens actually. Sorry. Sorry. Bismillah. Something very funny happened to me is that I keep on meeting a person that is very important in our... Yeah, I'm okay, alhamdulillah. I keep on meeting a person in my country here, and he was a very important person. I mean, he was one of the assistants of the king, and he was a spokesman of the palace, and etc. And when he meets me, he keeps on telling me that I am one of your professor that taught you in the school, in so and so school. And until now, I never remember that he taught me or that he's one of my teachers. But he can't just say that. And I said I'm gonna go back to my memories and search for that. I might, maybe he gave me a class and I didn't remember because I was still young, or the class was individual class, or I don't know. It's not an important class, or so that can happen actually. To say that one narrates from another, yeah, so strange, yeah. And then the other rejects his narration, and more than that, something happened to me. It's so funny that someone came to visit me and he told me that, do you remember me? I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't remember you. He said, how come you don't remember me? And you came to my house, and and we had a good night with each other, and we spoke with each other, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't remember you. Another one said that you visit me in my city and you slept in my house with several people. So subhanallah, that can happen. Forgetting people, or forgetting that narrations of people, or forgetting what they told you, it can happen lots of times. So that's why the majority of scholars accept these kinds of narrations as long as the narrator is trustworthy and he's memory. And sometimes they call it riwayatu man haddatha amman nasi. Some scholars say that so and so told me that I told him so and so. So he forgot that he told him, but he didn't reject that, so he starts narrating it from him, and he forgot it. رواية من حدث عمن نسي. So here he says, Al-Hafidh Muhammad says that al-muthbit muqaddamun ala al-nafi, the one who is proving something, he is preferable than the one who rejects, because the one who rejects might forget, but the one who's proving, and he said, no, I narrated that, and I know that I narrated that, he's preferable than the other one. You see? And measuring that with the witness is not proper, because the witness, you can't witness in the court about something and the origin person who is concerned of it is alive and he's present. So if he's present, you can't have another witness where the one that is concerned by it is present. He's the one who has to witness, not you. So there's a difference between between narrating and between witnessing, and that's why if a woman narrates, she's capable to narrate, but if she witnesses, she has to have another one with her to witness, and two women are equal to one man in the witness, not in narrating. Did you get that? There's a difference between narrating and witness. And this Al-Hafiz Al-Imam Al-Qarafi rahimahullah, Al-Qarafi differentiated between them in his book that is called Al-Furuq, the differences. Okay? And from this kind of narrations, we have a kind that is called Man Haddatha wa Nasi, the one that narrated and he forgot. And Al-Hafiz Ad-Daraqutni wrote a book about that. And this proves the right opinion that there are lots of people who narrated narrations, and then when they told them, look what you narrated, they forgot. They didn't remember it. But because there are trustworthy narrators that narrate it from them, we depend on that. We don't reject that. And some of them started narrating that from the ones that narrated from them. You see? Like Suhaib ibn Abi Salih, that narrated from his father, from Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, the story that talks about Yameen wa Shahid, the witness and the swear. So Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad al-Darawardi said he narrated from me. He narrated that hadith to me. No, he says that Rabi'a ibn Abi Abdurrahman narrated that hadith by Suhail. So I met Suhail and I asked him about that. So he said, I don't know that. So he said, Rabi'a told me that you said that. So Suhail later on used to say that Rabi'a narrated from me that I told him so and so, that my father said so and so. And there are lots of examples about that. Did you get that idea? Okay. Now we have what is called al-musalsal, like al-musalsal al-awwaliyya and all others. So if all the narrators in one chain have something that is equal to each other, like all of them say, I heard, I heard, I heard, I heard, it's called musalsal bis-sama'. Or if all of them say, Ashhadu billah laqad haddathani fulan, I witness by Allah that he narrated to me. Or by an act, like saying that I entered to so-and-so's house and he gave me some dates. And everyone says that. So all this. And like al-musalsal al-awwaliyya, that he says, and what, that was the first hadith that I heard from him, which is hadith musalsal al-awwaliyya that all of you know. And I'm going to give you a gift now. I'm going to give you a gift. And it's hadith musalsal al-awwaliyya by my narration. اسمع حبيبتي سلام ماما سلام ماما. يا ماما. أنا مش شغل ده. أبويا. اصبر. أبويا سنادة. أبويا بس حزلي. Okay, look at this. Sorry. Okay, I sent you Ijaza Amma, and it has my isnad to the Prophet ﷺ by Hadith Musalsal al-Awwaliyya. If you want later, you can hear it from me. And in this Ijaza, you can just put your name in it and the date that you had it reached to you. Okay? This is an Ijaza from me, Ijaza Amma. and you have the right to narrate it from me. Okay? It's a gift from me this day. وإياكم. Okay. So now the musalsal can reach to the Prophet ﷺ, inshallah, and it can cut in somewhere in the isnad, like musalsal al-awwaliyah. It cuts in Sufyan ibn Uyayna, where he stopped saying, and that was the first hadith that I heard from him. But all the isnad has this, and musalsal al-awwaliyah is one of the most authentic hadith that is narrated by al-awwaliyah. But most of the hadith that are musalsal al-awwaliyah are weak. Most of them are weak. Now, chapter 5. How do you narrate the hadith? How do you narrate the hadith? It says the narration of hadith can be by saying سمعت وحدثني, I heard, or he told me, he narrated to me, or أخبرني, he informed me, or I read on him. I read, that means you're reading and he's listening to you and he's agreeing. This is less than the first one. Or قرئ عليه وأنا أسمع, it was read on him and I was listening. That's the third one. Or أنبأني, he informed me. That's the fourth one. Or ناولني, he gave me a book and he told me. That's the fifth one. Or شافهني, that means he talked to me. By ijazah. By ijazah, that's the sixth one. Or he wrote to me, that means he sent me a letter. By ijazah too, that's the seventh one. Or an. One moment, please. هذا ماما. سير ماما. I'm so sorry. So and ثم عن ونحوها, that means by saying by, you narrate it by, or what is similar to it, that you can understand from it that it might be by listening, or by ijazah, or by like that you can say qala, he said, or dhakara, he mentioned, or rawa, he narrated, or others. So the first two words, which is سمعت وحدثني, I heard and he narrated to me, are proper, or are good, or you can get from them that are what is the best word to use? صالحان لمن سمع وحده من لفظ الشيخ. That means they are for somebody who heard from the Shaykh and the Shaykh narrated for him by words. And listening from the Shaykh and saying حدثني, that is well known between the scholars of hadith. There is no difference between, according to the language, between saying حدثني or أخبرني. According to the language, it's the same. He informed me. It means he informed me or he told me, the same thing. And claiming that there is a difference between them, that is a bit, difficult, because there is no difference between them. But sometimes there are titles, or there are some kinds of every knowledge or every branch of knowledge has its own words that you can say, its own how do you call them? Own typical words or something like that. Jargon? No, not jargon, no. Vocabularies? No, there's a precise word. Not vocabularies. Terminology. Yeah, terms or terminology. So the word language, according to the language, has a meaning more wider than what every branch of knowledge gives it. But there's a terminology between people of any kind of knowledge that they agree about. So we in every branch of knowledge, we take care of that terminology. So he says that the Western scholars, Andalusian, Moroccan, Tunisian, etc., they don't differentiate between these two terminologies, حدثني أخبرني. But the Eastern ones, the people of Khurasan, the people of Iraq, they differentiate between them. It's not a big deal anyway. So if somebody has both of these two terminologies, that means it says حدثني, sometimes it says أخبرني or سمعت. So that is an evidence or a proof that he heard with somebody else. So he said, no, so sorry, I'm sorry. If he says حدثنا instead of حدثني, that means there are lots of students and he is one amongst them. And the first one is very precise and clear. When he says حدثني or أخبرني. Or سمعت, that means that's more. And the high rank is when the Shaykh is giving you to write. So it's something that is very neat and precise. The third one is أخبرني. It's like the fourth one, قرأت عليه, I read on him, who was reading and the Shaykh is listening to him. So he says أخبرنا or قرأنا عليه. It's like the fifth one, and it's like when he says قرئ عليه وأنا أسمع. That means somebody was reading and I was listening to him. And we understand from this that when he says قرأت, it's better than saying أخبرني. because it is very precise and it shows that you read on him and he was listening to you. Where actually when you say أخبرني, it can mean more than that. It can mean more than that. Allah, all these things are just ways, and there are lots of differences between scholars about that, and it seems that lots of them are just differences in how to pronounce, how to describe what you did. And there are lots of differences between scholars. What is better, to read on the Shaykh and he's listening to you, or to listen or to hear the Shaykh and you are listening to? A big, actually, it's a big argument. You can go back to Kitab Al-Hafidh Al-Imam Al-Qadi Iyad rahimahullah, which is called Al-Ilma' Al-Ilma' fi Adab Riwayat Al-Sama'. It's very beautiful. Qadi Iyad. And I gave this book in Cordoba Academy. We read it. I think we took it twice. Twice, yeah. Wallahu a'lam. He says here, attention. Says that reading on Shaykh, it's a kind of studying on a Shaykh. And who said that that's not accepted? What he says is so far. And Imam Malik rahimahullah condemned that strongly. And other scholars of Medina condemned that. That means to say that it's not proper to sit down and start reading and the Shaykh listens to you. No, they say that Shaykh has to give you. What's the difference between both of these? What is the difference between Shaykh speaking and I'm hearing, listening to him, or I'm reading and he's listening to me, and if I make a mistake, he tells me that you made a mistake? What is the difference between that? Great scholars, a lot of scholars, amongst them Al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he said in the beginning of his book, and he narrated that from lots of scholars, that hearing from the words of the Shaykh and reading on the Shaykh, it is both of them are strong and the same. They are both equal. To listen and to hear from him. To make him listen and to hear from him. And the word imba, that means informed. According to the language and the terminology of the old scholars, the previous scholars, it's the same, but in the terminology of the latest scholars, they differentiate between them. So they say it is for the ijaza. Akhbarani is for the Amba'ani is for ijaza. It's like an. And if somebody who is in the same era and says from the other one, an fulan, by so and so, it is considered as something that he heard from him. It is considered that he heard from him, and that he met him and heard from him. But if somebody he wasn't, he wasn't in the same era, so that's a mursal. That's mursal. There's a cut there. So it is considered as listening or hearing from them as long as they are in one era, and at least they met with each other, or it was possible for them to meet each other, except for the one that is mudallis. So the mudallis, we don't accept from him any narration as long as he says an. And we took tadlis, so I'm not going to mention it again. So mudallis has to say haddathani or sami'tu. But saying only an, it's not accepted from him. Al-ijaza. And they say al-mushafaha, that means mentioning with your lips, because the lip is called in Arabic ash-shafa. Ash-shafa is a lip. So when you say mushafaha, that means speaking by your mouth, your lips. What two lips are shafatan. Shafatan. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْن وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْن, in two lips. And al-kitaba is for anything that you sent or wrote, like al-ijaza, that is written. And lots of latest scholars use this, unlike the previous scholars. So the previous scholars, when they say kataba ilay, that means when the Shaykh gives the permission to his student to narrate from him what he wrote. Not only the ijaza, that he sent him a letter by ijaza, no. He gives him the permission to read and to narrate what he wrote. Al-munawala is that you give somebody the book. Munawala, that means you give him a book. So you give him your book and you tell him. So it's considered as a proper way if you give the book and tell him, I give you the permission to narrate what I wrote in this book. And this is the highest rank of the ijaza, because ijaza, that you have the right to narrate this kind of book from me, that's the highest rank of ijaza. And that's by giving him your narrations that you wrote in a book. So he said, this is, you have the right to narrate that from me. So you give them permission to take the book and write all what you wrote in the book. Or nowadays, you can just photocopy it. But if he just gives them a book and he says, okay, give it back to me, it doesn't seem, he says, that there is a difference between it and between a normal ijaza, because it's just like telling him, okay, I give you the permission to narrate that from me. But he didn't take it and he didn't write it, so it's only an ijaza. The majority of scholars say if he gives you his book and he doesn't tell you, I give you the permission to narrate, it's nothing. It's not considered. But others considered it as a narration. Lots of scholars said as long as somebody wrote a hadith to you in a letter and sent it to you, you have the right to narrate it. And that's an evidence that shows that. There is no difference, he says, and I can't find any difference between that the Shaykh gives you a book or that he sends you a letter. It's the same thing. Al-wajada, that means finding. And you find, some scholars said that you have to have a permission in wajada. That means you find a book of somebody and you know his handwriting, so you say, okay, this is the handwriting of so and so, I have the right to narrate that hadith from him because this is his handwriting. And you don't say akhbarani here. And others said, no, no problem about that. You can say akhbarani, but that's a mistake. He says, that's a mistake. That's wrong. Al-wasiyya, that means leaving a will. That means before he dies or before he travels, he leaves a will written. And he says, this is my book, I want leave it to so-so that he can take it. So scholars say, the previous scholars say, he has the right to narrate from that book. The majority of scholars didn't agree about that. Unless he has an ijazah to narrate that book. But just leaving a will for him, no. Al-i'lam, informing. Okay. Informing, and they have وكذلك اشترطوا الإذن بالرواية في الإعلام وهو أن يعلم الشيخ أحد الطلبة بأنني أروي الكتاب فلاني عن فلان. Like Shaykh informs that his student that I narrate that so-and-so book from so-and-so. So he has to tell him, and I give you the permission to narrate it from me. But if he doesn't do that, he's not allowed to narrate it from him because he didn't give him the permission. Like the ijazah al-amma, general ijazah, this is considered but if he says, I give the permission to everybody in my era to narrate from me, or all Muslims in this day to narrate from me, or anybody who reached my life, anybody who was alive when I was alive to narrate from me, or all the people in Morocco or in Australia or in India to narrate from me, or the city, so-and-so city. So as long as you precise it, as long as it's more stronger. But when you leave it wide, it's more weak. And if you say, I give this ijazah to so-and-so, nobody knows who's so-and-so. Or if you say to anybody that is going to be born, or to somebody who was not born, still not born. So he says, this ijazah is for you and for all your offsprings. You know, what I believe that making ijazahs in this way is not good, because ijazah becomes without any sense. What do you mean by just giving me? And now what's happening nowadays? Everybody's traveling from a place to another, and you sit down with a sheikh. Please, sheikh, give us an ijazah. Okay, this is the ijazah. That's it. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. What did you take from him? Did you understand what he wrote? I don't think that that's a proper way to narrate from somebody, because actually you didn't narrate from him anything, and you didn't understand what you have. And if he gives you a general ijazah that has lots of books in it, maybe he never read those books, and you never read those books. Well, what is this? Ijazah nowadays became only for barakah. It's just something that you just imitate scholars with it, but actually it's not a proper way. The ijazah that is the proper ijazah is when you study and the sheikh gives you an ijazah. In that case, that means he examined you and he knew and he discovered that you deserve to take an ijazah, so he gives you the ijazah. And that's like in the end of your examinations, you take your announcement that you did so and so and you succeeded in it. So he says that all these last ijazas are not accepted. And even if he says, I give you an ijazah if, as long as so and so agrees. Or I give you ijazah as long as so and so wants that. Or, but if he says, I give you ijazah as long as you want, oh, there, it's accepted. قد جوز الرواية بجميع ذلك سوى المجهول ما لم. Okay. Khatib al-Baghdadi said all those ijazas are accepted. And he narrated that from a lot of his shuyukh. And old scholars used that, like Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawood and Abu Abdullah ibn Manda. Ijaza lil-ma'doom, somebody who still didn't exist. And ijaza that is hooked on, that is by a condition, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba used it. And narrating by Ijaz al-Amma, a lot of scholars narrated by Ijaz al-Amma. And some of the scholars wrote a book about that and put them on alphabetical names. And all that, like Ibn Salah said, that is being so wide in a way that is not accepted. Because ijaza, when you say ijaza al-khassa al-mu'ayyana, many scholars, there are scholars that don't agree about that. And there's a strong argument about that. Because what do they say? They say when, Ibn Hazm says that too. It says when I give you an ijazah in this book, and you didn't study it, I just say, okay, I give you an ijazah in this book. You say, Hassan gave me an ijazah in that book. Did you read that book? Did he listen to you? No. Well, ijazah in what? He gives you the permission to narrate that book, and you never heard it from him. So what are you narrating from him? And why should he give you a permission to read a book, and actually you never to narrate a book, and actually you never read it? That's not a proper way, actually. It's totally not a proper way. وإن كان العمل anyway, he says that majority of scholars nowadays agree about that. So anyway, it's less than sama'. Then going to the sheikh and reading. Actually, it's not only less than sama'. There's no comparison between them. Now, as long as you are still going down, 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 it loses its quality. Its quality is lost. But anyway, he says it's better than just saying the hadith without any isnad. And here we finish the ways to give a hadith, and the last chapter is أقسام الرواة باعتبار ضبط أسمائهم. Now the narrators, their classification according to what they narrated. Actually, it's time, and I don't want to just give you this chapter, although it's easy. It's not a, but it's. I don't want to give it to you. I'll add a lecture, inshallah, if you don't mind, and it'll be next Saturday, inshallah, the same time, and that would be, inshallah, the last chapter, bi'awnillahi ta'ala. You agree? Okay. And would you like to have any other lectures after that? If you think about anything about that and agree with each other, just send to me by brother or by any one of you, and I'm ready, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inshallah, inshallah. So you have my WhatsApp number. You can send to me and agree with me whatever you like to have, and I would be happy to give you the lectures that you want, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. الحمد لله. وصلى الله على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.